Welcome to the Masculine Wilderness podcast. I'm your host, Tom Perez, the CEO and founder of Epik Project, a nonprofit organization that is nurturing a generation of generative men. Today we have something new for you, new for me, and that is two guests at once. I was thrilled to have a conversation with Ian and Chris, a couple of motorcycle buddies who are doing incredible work to shift the stigma around men's mental health and suicide prevention. Ian, who goes by the nickname Pancakes, and Chris, who goes by Critter, both of them manage informative and adventurous and frankly, really encouraging YouTube channels. Their friendship transcends the typical bike rider camaraderie. Critter is a pioneer in the adventure and dual sport community within the motorcycle community. He's been a major advocate for men's mental health and founded the Get Lost, Find Yourself rally on Vancouver Island in Canada. Ian, who was inspired by Chris's online transparency, then shared his own story, and together they've taken their pain and darkness, and used their respective social media platforms to challenge stereotypes. This was such a fun conversation. These men believe that men should be defined by their compassion, their empathy, their emotional health, and not rigid expectations. Through their content, they encourage others to embrace things like vulnerability and seeking help when needed. And this authentic perspective is a compelling invitation to rethink and maybe reshape our sense of what it means to show up as a man in this world. And that's why we knew they'd be great guests on the Masculine Wilderness podcast. That, and we got a chance to geek out just a little bit on the beauty and general coolness of motorcycles. But also remember that this is a conversation that touches on difficult things like suicide and mental health struggles and sexual exploitation. It's never our goal to sensationalize the trauma of this topic, but we strive to speak truthfully about the damage being done. Thanks for joining us today as we explore more of the masculine wilderness.
Today's episode is brought to you by Hinton Development. Hinton Development is a Washington State company founded in 1986. Since its inception, in addition to the roles of general contractor and real estate developer, Hinton Development has served in the capacity of property management for numerous rental properties and projects, both residential and commercial, in Washington and Oregon. Visit hintondevelopment.com to learn more.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Masculine Wilderness podcast. This is Ian and Chris that are joining me today. This is new for a couple of reasons. There's three of us and not just two of us in conversation. And it seems fitting that we do it this way, considering the expertise, the lived experience that these two guys bring around the subject of male friendship. So I want to give you guys a chance just to share maybe a little bit. I'm really eager for everyone to hear a little bit of your story and how your stories intersected with each other. And let's just start there.
Well, Critter, I think you got to start this thing then, because I came second to this.
I got to start because I'm your abbot to my Costello. Is that how that works? Something like that?
Yeah. Something.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, a little bit of my story. So I am a 50-something-year-old guy who happens to run a little bit of a YouTube channel. Where things really kicked off was in 2022. I've always had a bit of an issue with mental illness and depression. In 2022, things hit so hard, so dark, so deep that I actually tried to kill myself by riding my motorcycle off a cliff. This is going to be the Coles Notes version. But thankfully, I didn't. When I got back, this was on one of my adventures down to Oregon. And when I got back home, being an aspiring YouTuber, I was following YouTubers all over the place. And one of the fellows I was following was Tyler from Everride. And he had published a video about his own struggles with mental illness and depression. And I really look up to his filming technique and his style. And I thought, you know, if he can do that, I can do it too. So I put together a video of my trip, portions of my trip that I had not included in my trip video because I was too afraid to put it out. But I put together that video, put it out, and the moment you press publish, all that fear comes back and you get kind of freaked out and scared and what have you done? But the overwhelming response was phenomenal. Move on a little bit forward here on the island. I have a couple of really great friends, Summer and Kevin, and they're always hosting Easter giver rides, Thanksgiving rides. And it's basically just a public ride to get together and go and explore the bush, do some off-roading and just get together and have some fun. And anyways, Kevin said to me one day, he said, we should do a ride for you for suicide prevention. And from there, the nitrous was put into the engine and it was full steam ahead. And I went psycho and totally organized this event called Get Lost, Find Yourself. The picture back there, that's a poster, which ended up selling out remarkably fast after only one post on Instagram. Wow. This year is our second year. The second year sold out in 24 hours, just under 24 hours to be exact, but let's say 24 hours, attendance of 100 people. And what it is in a nutshell, it's a weekend retreat, basically to raise funds and awareness for men's mental health and suicide prevention. We picked a location, North Island, because the North Vancouver Island is absolutely stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. And where we were lucky enough to come across Michaela, the owner of the campground where we're at, Windy Waters, that campground happens to be where there is no Wi-Fi. There is no cell service.
What?
So, yes. So what's really great is we can get there and people are forced to talk to each other. So none of this, standing with each other and looking at your phone and going, oh yeah, and being distracted. That was the whole point of getting guys together, getting people together, sharing stories, sharing battle scars, talking about the wounds and being there to support one another. Just a huge support. Our benefactor is a program out of University of British Columbia called Heads Up Guys. And they're doing phenomenal work, raising awareness and creating programs all towards suicide prevention in men and men's mental health in general. The reason why I chose them as the benefactor is because when I got back from my trip where I attempted to kill myself, I started to seek help. I was looking for help. And everywhere I went on the old interwebs, here in Canada anyways, you would go to government health sites, government-run sites, all these sites. And you have to have a degree in government speak to be able to understand these things. I came across Heads Up Guys, and for me, it was so ABC, just straightforward, boom, boom, boom. I immediately felt right away, just looking at the website, I immediately felt I'm not alone. There's other guys out here and there's help. This is awesome. And it was so moving for me that I just wanted to help these guys out. So that's why we picked up Heads Up Guys as our sponsor or our benefactor. This year, we have over 60 sponsors involved, corporate and individual sponsors supporting the event. We've raised over $18,000 worth of items to be raffled off. That's just items to be raffled off to the attendees that are coming. Yeah. So this event is growing huge. Now, we get into the friendship factor where this crazy guy comes in. So I had published that one video about my struggles, and a lurker with a great YouTube name, Motorcycles and Pancakes, started commenting on all my videos. Comment here, comment there. And we brought up this internet friendship, if you will, just goofing around back and forth. And it sounds cliche or weird or corny to say, but even though I never met the guy, I felt an instant kinship with him. I felt an instant connection with the guy, right? Really comfortable. And what had happened is in 23, the Easter Giver was going to be held by Summer and Kevin, who I mentioned earlier. And Ian here says, hey, I'm going to come up. I'm like, yeah, okay, you can stay at my place. Come on and stay at my place. And as soon as I agreed to that, I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just do? I don't even know this guy's a complete stranger. Yeah, he seems great online, but he could be a complete different guy. And one thing you should know about me is I'm really socially awkward and a huge introvert. You put me into a crowd of strangers and I'll be the guy in the corner just watching, being quiet. To make small talk for me is absolutely painful. I do not know how to do it. That's why I said earlier, the Abbott and Costello reference. So there's a real salt and pepper thing here. But anyways, so Ian comes up And we decide that night we'll do a live stream. I'll have a live stream. I'll have as a guest on my channel. And yeah, like, I don't know, as soon as he rolled in the driveway, it was like, yay, and then the big hug right away. And it's honestly like I'd known the guy all my life. Like, he comes up and there's just that chemistry, whatever it is, you know, big hugs, you know, high fives, whatever. And during the live stream, it was just like, you know, we're talking, we're entertaining the people on the camera, talking amongst ourselves. And the whole time I'm thinking, I grew up with this guy. I know this guy, you know, like, it was so strange and so weird. And then when he, you know, brought his own story to the surface, and I'm assuming it's something him and I really haven't talked about, but I'm assuming there was a kinship on his side because I had gone through my struggles and he felt connected to that. So when he brought up his own story of his own struggles and his attempt, I mean, that only brought the bond that much closer. It's kind of like, you know, veterans who see combat together, or first responders who see trauma together, how you form that connection through, you know, life's most horrible moments, and you are your kin. So, you know, when he brought that out, it's like, yeah, like, I mean, it's just solidified everything even more. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of went all over the place there.
So you're coming up on the third anniversary of your event?
Second. This will be the second.
Got it. Wow. That's rapid growth. Wow.
Yeah, the event is really moving. It's really, when we were down at Giant Loop, I was there and I had people coming up and giving me a hard time because I don't sell enough tickets, because they wanted to come up. So it's like,
yeah, well, I'm going to be in line for the next one. Yeah.
All right. Tickets will probably go on sale in January, February next year.
All right. That's great.
You heard it here first.
Ian, so share with us a little bit about, your side of this cool story.
Well, he about did it right there. But no, I think if we had to step back, you know, before the friendship, like, my journey was a little bit different than his. You know, I grew up always feeling like not good enough, right? A lot of things would fight depression, you know, and I would get down and just, you know, the inside feeling of just like loss and just depressed and just like mopey on the inside, but outside you're like, hey, everybody, how you doing? I'm doing great. Right? And so you kind of mask the true feelings on the inside. And it finally came to a head, which is, you know, I'm married then and I have kids, and like, life is happening, right? Tons of life is happening. And a lot of good things are actually happening for me in that part of the time. I'm coaching high school football, just everything in life. I'm starting the business and all this stuff. And it seems like everything is going very well. But on the inside, I felt like a failure. I felt horrible on the inside. And at some point, it all just came to a head. And one night, you know, I just horrible feeling and lots of whiskey involved. And I downed some sleeping pills. Like, there should have been enough to, like, that was it. That should have been enough to kill me right there.
Yeah.
I just had a great night's sleep, you know, but, you know, I remember waking up and being like, oh, crap. All right. Well, that didn't work. You know, I kind of feeling that.
Yeah.
And so I had this experience, and through the years, I didn't tell anybody. I wouldn't tell anybody. Yeah. You know, it was just like, you know, the wife knew. And that was it. I didn't want anybody else to know. And then she was like, you got to go get help. You go to therapy, and you sit in therapy and you're just lip service, just what people want to hear, right? Not what you're truly feeling on the inside. But I went through that because I just didn't want to be there. So finally, this kind of gets done. You start progressing through the years. You're still fighting the depression. You're like, should I try that again or should I not? Whatever, right? And motorcycles are becoming more and more and more in my life, more important. And I started getting involved with YouTube, and I found this weird Canadian guy going by Critter. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start watching this dude's videos. And at this time, I'm like on a shopping spree for videos, essentially. I'm watching everybody. If you're on a motorcycle, I'm watching your stuff. And something about his videos I was just able to connect with. And I don't think it was the actual content. I think it was the actual person on the bike, the way he's talking, the way he's acting and stuff. It drew me to his videos. And then at some point I watched his video, and I think at that point we were already kind of loosely talking back and forth. And I know that he was putting out his video, and I watched it, and it was just like a kick to the stomach. Like, I know exactly what he's feeling, what the thoughts are. I mean, everything about this is like connecting and resonating with me 1,000%.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't want to tell anybody, right? It's my secret. Don't tell anybody. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be shamed. I don't want to be whatever, right? Insert your word there. So kind of fast forward a little bit. He was doing the Easter Giver ride. And that's what he was saying. Like, hey, dude, I'm going to come up and ride that. And I pretty much invited myself. He was like, hey, come stay with me. But I was like, I'm coming. I'm going to be there regardless. So I bounced up to his house, and exactly. I mean, I was excited to get there, and it was like, I was ahead of schedule. I remember riding around these different towns and just being like, all right, I got another hour to kill. And then finally I was like, oh, I'm here. And he comes out.
You don't want to show up early for that awkward. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of a time guy. So he's like, be here. I think he said be here at 5 or whatever it was. Right. I'm like, okay, I'll be there at 5. And I don't want to be there like at 4 or 3:30 or whatever. So anyways, yeah, I remember pulling in the driveway, he coming out of his front door, and I'm just like, just like totally excited. And it was like this instant bromance, if you will. And it was just like that instant connection, right? And the live was amazing, and we might have had a lot of whiskey to drink that day and during that live. And then we got over to the actual ride, and everybody was coming up introducing themselves. Hey, whatever. And I remember Claire was like, do I need to whisper to you guys? Are you hungover? We were just like, no, we're fine, but it was a great ride. And I think Chris really nailed it home. It was like, I feel like I've known him my whole life too. It's really a weird connection that him and I have. And it's powerful, I think. It's like you went from not knowing who you are to the most important male friend in my life, like overnight, like literally. And so now it's like we ride together a lot. And I use this term. I tell him this too. I'm like, you're right. You're my riding soulmate. Like we'll be out on dual sporting and venture riding or something. And I know what he's doing. And in fact, you remember this last year, your event, Summer was riding behind us, and Kurt and I are kind of riding down this 2-track, and we like to goof off, if you could believe it. But there's like mud puddles, and we're screaming through mud puddles, and we're splashing, and we're trying to roost each other, and we're trying to do all this stuff. And we come up to a corner where everybody stops, and Kurt and I come up to a stop. Summer rides in between us and goes, riding behind you two is like riding behind 2 toddlers. Oh my gosh. Just laughing about how much we're just joking around and stuff. But through all of this, it was like at some point, Critter and I started talking about my story. Like I opened up to him. He's the first person outside of the wife that was like, knew what was going on. Like
how long did you carry that before that moment without telling
my story?
Yeah,
over a decade.
Wow.
This is over a decade at this point.
Wow.
And so he was very being able to open up to somebody like that, especially the proverbial man card that we're all supposed to have when we're born. I don't know where it comes from, but it's dumb.
Yeah.
The way that we are supposed to be like, Critter, I'm really struggling right now. And for him to say something like, all right, I'm here for you. What do you need? We can have that conversation, be vulnerable with one another. But it's supposed to be like, Tom, I'm struggling. And you turn around and go, push it down, dude. You're fine. Who cares, man? Here's a beer, right? Something like that.
Suck it up.
Suck it up there. All of that stuff is ridiculous. So when I was scared to tell him, but I felt like I needed to. And so once I started telling him, and the reception and the kindness and the allowing me to be that vulnerable, was profound to just me as a person.
What did it feel like? What did it feel like in that moment to be seen like that as a man? You know, it just like, because there's so many things in the way I think men are raised that works against being able to really understand what's happening in that moment. But like for you, when you finally shared that, having that kind of conversation, like what did it feel like to be seen like that?
Well, first it was terrifying, right? Because it's really hard to say, hey man, I tried to kill myself because of A, B, and C, right? It's really terrifying to know you're about to put that out. But then being received, I don't think I actually recognized what was happening in the moment until later down the road. Like, oh, we're being received well. We're being not judged. You know, we're finding support. You know, all the positives that can come out of it is what Critter was showing me. And that was huge. And then he started to encourage me, because I said, like, originally I was like, when he started talking about doing the Get Lost event, I don't remember I texted you or messaged you or whatever I did. I said, maybe I should talk about my story. Like, maybe I should talk about it up there. And he was like, yeah, dude, for sure. And it was supportive. But then at some point, I literally, my dad was going to be there. Right? My dad didn't know. So I was like total cold feet. And I was just like, maybe not. So I kind of regretfully, but I think actually turned out for the best, the fact that I backed out of that. And after that event last year, I really decided I need to do a video on this. How does it look and stuff? And I took kind of the documentary-esque, not a filmmaker by any means. I'm just some ragtag YouTube wannabe. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to try making some sort of a documentary. I kind of did it black and white and whatever. And it's called My Inner Monologue. And I ended up shooting this video. And for the next 2 weeks, between deciding I wanted to do it, actually filming it, and then editing it, which takes a while, I had to live in that bubble again. And it wasn't terrifying. It was terrible. It was just, you're having to be open and reliving the worst event of your life, you know, and then getting down and editing. And there's certain parts of it where I just like, I don't want to listen to that again, but it's like, rewind, rewind, you know, and you're trying to edit it just right. And you're having to listen to it over and over and over and over again. And then, you know, it's done. And then you have to watch it it was just, I was reliving a nightmare over and over and over. And it sucked, but encouragement from, you know, now the families and from Critter and just doing the support and just being able to, like he said earlier, I'm being vulnerable in this video, but a select few know that this video is actually being made. Now it's downloaded on YouTube and you have the publish button. And hitting that was one of the most scary moments of my life, where you're just like, okay, here you go, world. Here, you know, and Critter's shaking his head. I mean, hitting the publish button when you're not supposed to be that. And I didn't tell anybody the video. I just put it out at a different look, at a different style of thumbnail, you know, and then it comes out. And I've said this a few times before. The day it came out was one extremely difficult day because of the reception. Oh. So what I mean is, I had not one, but two grown men call me crying. Like, I feel this. This is my story. This is what happened to me. Wow. The messages that were coming in on Instagram, the messages that were coming in, just text messages, and just every platform you can think of was this massive rush of like crazy, positive, supportive. This has happened to me. I had a mother. I broke down. This is actually what ended the day. Cause at the end of the day, I went live. I'm crying, you know, and it's like, I shouldn't be going live crying, but you know, I'm going live because this is me. And I just tell everybody, I'm shutting my phone off. I have to disconnect for the rest of the day for my mental health. Like, this is so much. And what did it is I had a mom whose 19-year-old son committed suicide. And she reached out and just was like, I finally understand what he was feeling. And that right there was just too much. It was just like, she gave me this huge message. I asked, here we are again, getting all teary-eyed, but I asked her permission if I can just anonymously put that up on my story. And of course she was like, yeah, do that. And it was just like, okay, put that up. All right, I gotta go. I gotta disconnect. And so, bounce away and disconnected for the rest of the day. And then I remember the next morning I was like, I gotta turn my phone on. I don't know if I'm ready for this again, but it was the next couple of days. It was just the reception over it was incredible. And, it was just one of the most crazy, most terrifying things to ever put out there. But the support of Critter and everybody. And, I couldn't have done it without him, honestly. The support of him. I couldn't have done that video, been that vulnerable. And he is, in my eyes, the number one men's mental health motorcycle guy spreading this wonderful message.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I'm just writing coattails, but I kind of feel like I'm very passionate being in that advocacy space with him as well.
What did your dad say when he saw it, or did he see it right away, or did you share it with him ahead of time?
I was out of town at the time with my company. I was driving and over the road trucking, and I was actually in Los Angeles. And I remember I was going down to get a pickup or something on heavy industrial area, and I see his number come across. And beforehand, I knew that he saw it because my mom called me and kind of said, hey, so I didn't know this and I'm really, happy, whatever. And then I was like, yeah, did Dad see it? And she's like, yeah, they saw each other or whatever. And she's like, did you see it? And he's like, yeah. So anyways, I get the phone call from my pops, from Pancakes. And, his first words weren't like, hello. I was like, hey, Dad. He's like, so I saw your video. I was like, yeah. And it was kind of quiet. And I think he was I don't know if he was struggling or whatever, but he was like, I'm really proud of you for putting that out.
Wow.
Those were it was just complete support. I think I answered all the questions within the video. And it was just like, I'm really proud of you for doing that, And that was profound because my dad, if you don't know anything about me, before I met Critter, my dad and I ride all over the place. He's 74, still riding, and adventure riding on the roads, motor trips, moto camping. My dad and I have been really close, obviously my whole life. So for him to I'm really proud of you. That was
that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm struck by both ends of this story. For a number of reasons. I got a ton of questions rattling around in my head, but the thing that I love, one of the things that I love about this is the high level of vulnerability that you guys, are expressing about your stories, but even just your affection for one another as friends. And that feels real counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of guys, right? That doesn't always happen. The other thing that I love about this story is I think it could have happened in other ways, but it was, what's the word I'm looking for? It was facilitated or enabled by something I know we all three share a passion for, and that's riding motorcycles. And a lot of times I have heard men criticized for the fact that they can't just sit and share, but they have to be doing something. And it just seems like this is a lot of both of those things. It's doing something. But I wanted to, just for a few minutes, I'd love to hear from both of you. Why do you love these, a family friend referred to them as murder cycles, these dangerous dangerous vehicles. Will you both just riff a little bit on why do you love these things? Because it seems to have enriched the story that you're telling right now and the story that you're sharing right now.
All you, Critter.
Well, I mean, it's cliche and everything, but for me, the motorcycle is the ultimate freedom machine. It is the ultimate escape from bad days, great days, whatever days you're having. It is the ultimate, removal from not to say that once you're on a bike, you're removing yourself from all responsibilities and everything you need to do. More so for me, it's a time to turn it off, to turn everything off, to take a break and reevaluate, maybe ponder, maybe think about, maybe put things in perspective, as well as get the me time, the alone time that you need. I've been riding bikes for 40 years now. And, when I went through my first divorce, that motorcycle saved me then. And it probably saved someone else too, because I was very angry and I probably could have ended up in jail, incarcerated for something that I would have regretted. But the motorcycle saved me then. And then now in 22, the motorcycle, it was saving me through a really rough patch where I think just a life's worth of what I was feeling, unfairness, struggles, depression, just a lifetime's worth of that, all building up. And then like Ian had mentioned earlier, not being able to talk about it, not being able to share, not that you couldn't, but it's more drilled into the head that you can't, you don't do that. So the motorcycle saved me from that in that sense. And since I found the world of the dirt, dual sporting and moto camping has really, I don't know, it's sort of put, weird to say, but life in perspective and just how small I am, not in a bad way, because it's, small as I am in a good way, because I realize just how much more there is out there to see. And that's the real draw right now for me with the motorcycles, is just getting out and exploring and seeing everything and taking
and you
it all
see
in.
it and you feel it and you smell it and all that. Yeah. Ian, how about you? What's the magic for you?
You just kind of said it right there. I mean, it's the sense of adventure for me. The doors that motorcycles open up. I think my riding, at least on the road, like grew up riding dirt bikes and stuff, like so many people. I think my first bike was like the second grade, maybe third grade, somewhere in there. I had the little Honda XR80.
Oh man, you're the kid I always envied.
So that was my intro to motorcycles. And then you fast forward and now you're riding on the road, you had the crotch rocket for a while. And then, I actually specifically remember sitting on a Harley one day, kind of way out in the woods, and just looking down this gravel road. I'm like, where does that go? And turn down and it's like clink, 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 getting the gravel on your pipes. And you're like, oh, I got to turn around. This sucks, but I want to know where that goes. And then once you get I got into adventure riding. So there's a little bit of a difference between dual sport and adventure riding, but they kind of really coexist very well. And so I got into kind of the ADV world, and man, just gravel travel changes your life. Being out in the woods, because the woods are my happy place anyways. Yeah. So just riding and getting out there and just exploring. And I think there is a huge difference between the woods and the wilderness. And at some point when you're riding, you're like, oh, we're in the wilderness now, kids. And when I hit that point, it just is like, I feel like I'm at home. And you can see Chris, he's just like smiling and shaking his head. Him and I have been numerous times in the wilderness where we're like, oh my gosh, we're here kind of, attitudes. But I think also the wind therapy, it's cliche, but it's very real. It is very real. When I ride, a lot of people are kind of taken back by this, but I don't listen to music. A lot of people they got comms and they're like, I listen to music or whatever. I don't. It is my time to be at one with the motorcycle. I want to hear it. I need to feel it. I want to be hyper vigilant on what's around me, but also I'm kind of an overthinker. And so it's weird to say too, when you're on the motorcycle, you have to shut your mind off because you have to be hyper focused. You have to see what's coming up. You have to react. Am I on gravel? How's the back end coming around? There's so many variables that are going on that sometimes if it's just a horrible day or going through something or something bad or something good or something you're trying to figure out, you shut your mind down. You're just ripping through the woods and all of a sudden, like, that's it. It just comes to you. And it's a whole new perspective on just living. It's amazing.
I can totally identify with just kind of having to narrow your focus, and it's a short list of really important things like you just described. I gotta know if there's anything coming, any cross traffic or if there's gravel, but there's not a lot of things to think about, but they're really important. That a lot of the folks that are listening to us aren't necessarily motorcycle enthusiasts, but there's multiple subcultures of motorcycle enthusiasts. Can you guys break down the major category of bikers? And that's a category in itself, right?
That is a category in itself.
We'll leave the 1%ers out. So that's like
we're not talking we're not talking Hell's Angels, but yeah.
So you got like your Harley guys, right? And you don't know. That's a whole genre. It's a whole conversation with it itself.
Yep.
And then, you've got, I'm an adventure guy and Chris is a dual sport guy. So Lucy, his bike is a Honda CRF 250L. So it's kind of a littler bike, if you will, but it's not. Lucy's rad. And then Chris, do I still say I have the AT-AT right now? Probably not.
I don't think so.
I just wrecked. My bike's totaled. So we're trying to figure out the next AT-AT squared. So my bike was called the AT-AT. It was a Honda Africa Twin. It's a CRF 1100. So you could see the style, or the size difference on those bikes. So a lot of people would give me a hard time because, you got a big bike. You can't follow the little guys, the dual sport guys, but where he goes, I go. It just, what am I missing here, Critter? I feel like I'm missing a whole bunch for the size of motorcycles.
Yeah, like you say, and some of the genres kind of blend into each other. It's not so cut and dry, because I'm not just solely dual sport. I have kind of an identity crisis where I ride my dual sport in an adventure style way. I'll log 5,000-6,000 kilometers, miles on the little 250 all the time. And like Ian was saying, he's always getting crap. You can't take your big bike up there. And I'm always getting crap. You can't take your little bike down there. I rode it all the way down to Nevada and back, right?
Wow.
So yeah, we've got the adventure type. We've got the dual sport type. Those are, kind of a sub-classification of what we call dirty riders, because they're always dirty, always in the dirt. Right? Yeah. Then you got your street riders, which would include your Harley guys, your cafe racer guys, which are into the retro type bikes, and the Gixxer, the Gixxer guys, the GSXR guys, the crotch rocket guys, the sport bikes, which most of us call squids because they're going to be an organ donor one day. Not to say that they're all like that. I shouldn't generalize. We shouldn't generalize. But when you do pull up social media and stuff, 9 times out of 10, those are the guys pulling the wheelies down city streets at Mach 8. So yeah, there's a place for everything. And my personal views is that belongs on the track or in a closed circuit, but I digress.
Yeah.
We basically have that.
I love that. My experience with all of those groups has been pretty much, it doesn't matter which group you're in when you encounter, like for me, when I encounter those other groups, there is a certain camaraderie or at least a basic level of respect. Like, I see you, we're out here together on 2 wheels. And I was out, my first motorcycle was left to me by a friend who passed away suddenly. And it was a 1995 Honda Goldwing. Big, big monster cruiser. And I remember taking a trip. I lived in Colorado at the time, and I had stopped at a gas station to get something to drink. And this guy on a early 80s vintage Harley during the AMF years, if you know anything about those bikes, this thing had been rode hard and put away wet. And the guy looked like it too. I mean, he was this leathery old cowboy, and you know, and you would have expected, especially Harley guys can have that attitude where they're, you know, they kind of look down on other bikers. I think all groups probably do that to one degree. But anyway, I expected this guy to give me grief, and he sat there for 20 minutes giving me a detailed list about why the bike I was riding was one of the best bikes ever made. Like, he just knew,
right,
you know, about my bike, and that always stuck out to me, because this gets back to what I was saying earlier about doing things together as men actually can foster a really significant sense of connection, and it's just it's a wonderful thing. I think that's one of the things I love about riding. Why I like it is because you can talk to just about anybody. I have had conversations with 1% biker guys, you know, gang members, because I'm standing there looking at their bike and just marveling over it, you know, and you can have that kind of conversation.
Yeah. And I'll add to that a little bit that the camaraderie between the cross the groups is getting better and better all the time.
That's really good.
Because I mentioned earlier, I've been riding for 40 years, and I remember when I first started riding, it wasn't like that. If you were on an adventure bike or a dual sport, you were, because I started my motorcycle career, if you will, or my motorcycle life as a cruiser guy, as the black leather clad, you know, don't mess with me, I'll mess you up type guy, right? Yeah. I hung out with all those guys, and it was very much, oh, you're on a crotch rocket? I ain't got the time of day for you. But now, you know, as I attend more events and you see more events, you're seeing a real, like, everyone's getting together. We're all recognizing each other, that, you know, the old cliche, it's the same wind. Yeah, it's the same wind. We all share the same wind, right? Yeah. So we're all getting together and we're respecting one another. I seen a couple of Harley guys, as a matter of fact, just the other day, pulled over because another guy on just an older Honda or something was on the side of the road. I guess he'd rounded gas or something, but the Harley guys had stopped to help him out. And when I first started, you wouldn't see that. They would just ride by, maybe flip you the bird and go, ha ha, type thing, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's the same. So just to be clear, like, this isn't something that's unique to men. Women might do this a little bit better. Like, they understand that camaraderie, you know, maybe more intuitively than we do.
Right. And, you know, honestly, I think one of the best things to ever happen to the motorcycle world is the inclusion of women. I get so pumped when I see women's events. I get so pumped when I see more and more women show up at events, and not showing up as passengers, right, but showing up on their own bikes. Yeah. Like, that's awesome. And, you know, I don't know what it is, but men just behave better when the girls are around, you know? I don't know. I don't know if that sounds wrong or anything, but
they're tough too. I took my grandson camping in North Cascades National Park last year, and we got up the morning we were coming. I was bringing him home, and around the corner from us in the campground, and I hadn't really heard or seen them come in that night, but there were probably 20 women bikers who were riding custom old school hardtail choppers, and they had showed up. I don't know. I slept really well, but they were
so loud.
What impressed me about them is they had just simply unrolled tarps and sleeping bags on the picnic tables, on the ground. They slept outside under the stars, and it wasn't warm. That's great. But I mean, like, they showed up because they wanted to ride, and they enjoyed that experience. I want to come back to the friendship thing, but I shared my first bike. Ian, you're first, and then Chris, you're first.
Ian, you're first, right?
Yes. I already said it. It was the X. I was like, I already said it. Yeah, my first bike was an XR80.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. And then my first road bike was a Kawasaki Ninja ZX6.
Okay, so it was a sport bike.
It was so 90s. It was awesome. It was like black with like the neon blues and purples and pinks. I was like, yeah. That's right. I remember riding it home. My dad took me out to go get it, and we were riding home, and I was just like 55. my dad's like, what the heck are you doing? Can you like ride or something? You know, you're barely doing the speed limit. I like to get home. Just give me a hard time about just riding slow.
That's awesome.
What do you got, Critter?
My very first motorcycle was a Honda Ascot 500.
Oh, yes. The V twin. Was that the
No,
the
it's a single cylinder.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
500. Yeah, right. They are a little hard to find nowadays. A lot of guys pick them up and use them as refurbish them as flat track racers nowadays. But it was just nothing fancy, utilitarian type, go to work, come back bike. But it was my first one. I ended up trading my 1969 Fiat Spider convertible for the motorcycle. So probably not the best trade in the world, but It was straight across trade. And I rode that thing home without a license, and away we went, got my license after that. And the rest is history.
What kind of effect have you seen? And I know you're like collectively, you're kind of just, this is kind of new for you. I'm thinking of the event that you guys are, sharing, and but like, what kind of effect has your stories and the experiences that you're trying to curate, both in person and things that you do online? What kind of effect do you see it having on other men? What kind of feedback? You shared a little bit about that, but are you seeing, like, is this really touching on something that needs to be kind of exposed and brought out?
Oh, absolutely. I know for myself, I was building a little bit of a community on my YouTube channel, just being authentic, not trying to be clickbaity, not trying to, just being me. Like Ian had said, it wasn't so much for the content, it was for the person that drew him in. So I started to build that little community. And then once I came out with my story and the feedback started coming back, I started forming connections within this community. And we started opening up to each other strangers opening up to me. And then they in turn would then inspire someone else that would open up to them. They would share with me, and it would just ripple right through, like they say, like a pebble on a pond. And
what was it that went. What was it that fostered that connection?
Geez, I don't know.
Good question.
It is a good question. I maybe the honesty and sincerity, not only in my video, but in my responses to their comments as well. Because I know, like Ian was saying, once you hit that publish button, it's terrifying. And I was terrified when I did that. And then when you start getting comments back on your videos from complete strangers, and the comment is, multiple sentences long, I sit there and I think just how long it would have taken me to type that down, even in a good mood, let alone an emotional mood, an affected mood. So, I would take that right in and really digest that and give them my honest, heartfelt reply and, or thank you or response to that. And I think that kind of maybe oozed out to everyone else. And, people started to know that by no means self-promotion, but people started to know that Critter Moto was a safe space. It's a safe community. You can come in there. There's no judgment. There's no nothing. You can believe the sky is red. I am not going to judge you for that. I'm going to say, hey, good for you. Good to stick to your beliefs. Or you can tell me that you're having a really hard time, and I can say, hey, let's private message. Let's talk. Let's do something. Right. And I think it's just the fact, with men, I think, all it takes really is just one. And I think at that point in time, I was the one. And then it just sort of opened up, and other guys were like, this guy's like me. This guy's a lot like me, much like how I did with Tyler when I watched Tyler's video. And I had the realization, he's just like me. He did it. I can do that too. Yeah. I'm feeling exactly like that. I can put it out there too. Right. So not so much would the viewers and subscribers put it out there, but they would at least voice it via the keyboard, via the text, or via a message, that kind of stuff. Right. Yeah. And just a real nurturing kind of thing.
You think if I can pile on?
I don't know.
Hey? I think, pile on here, Mr. Chris. I think one of the things that Fritter has done has just been the tip of the spear. I know that there's been other people that have done it, even Nathan Fant with The Love of Knobs. He put out a video on his depression and stuff. And I think that even surpassed, or it was even before your video, if I remember the timeline correct. But I think sometimes people put out a video and that's kind of it. You try to move on and you try to help people. But what Critter's done is he's decided to be the tip of the spear, and he's created this event. He's created this environment where if you're not in this dual sport adventure community, it's hard to understand. This is the most non-judgmental group of humans you'll ever find.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what bike you're on. How can you power slide around a corner throwing a rooster, or are you going around that same corner at 5 miles an hour because you're new? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You're family. And one thing for me, especially with a lot of the people around where Critter is with the mixed nuts, another kind of group of people, you have family, but then you have chosen family. And a lot of this dual sport has become chosen family. And I love them like family. And I think Critter doing this and creating his event, being the one who's like, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable. I'm also going to start really advocating for this stuff. And anybody that comes within this circle and you come in, this is like he just said, this is your safe space. And the way that he cultivates people, like he's saying, people will leave long comments. And you have to think like it's kind of anonymous because maybe the screen name is user X54510 whatever. It's not really a name, but it's giving somebody an environment to be vulnerable and get a reply, and that's happened with Critter. That's happened with me. And I've had people, actually probably reaching out to both of us. And I remember one time somebody was texting you and they're messaging you and you're like, how do I respond or something, and I had, when there's somebody in crisis, it's like, I'm not a trained professional, but here's some numbers, and that's the part that I'm trying to be better at. But within this community and stuff. Yeah.
That was a question I had. So when you do sense that this person, might need some really, really, professional help, you guys are able to either encourage them that way, or do you have references that you would send them?
I think we both have the same references.
Yeah, a bunch of references
that we would send them. And I have one. I'm not going to say their name, but I have somebody that I can reach out to who's actually a licensed therapist.
Yeah.
And if I have any kind of questions or something, I mean, I know that they are there to help.
Yeah. I'm listening to two dudes talk about depression and suicide and the need for authentic friendships and connection. And they value, therapy. Like it's not a either or thing. If I'm hearing what you guys are saying, right? Like it's a package.
Yeah.
But that's not, in a lot of circles, that's not normal, right? Because men don't do therapy
right.
I know. And I'm the oldest of the three of us. I that's kind of how I was raised. The other thing that fascinates me, and tell me if I'm hearing this right, if I'm hearing your stories, you're having these conversations, these real open and vulnerable conversations face to face, but you're also having them like in a digitally mediated format. You're texting, like, so this can happen in both of those settings, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think for some, it's almost more secure for them to be able to send a text message or a direct message or a comment on a YouTube, right? Because like Ian said, there's still that what's the word?
Anonymity.
Or that safe wall that you haven't really exposed yourself to, right? During the event, the most moving, powerful thing is when you have people come up to you. I had, some guys come up to me at the event, thank me profoundly for everything we've done and tell me that I've saved their life because of it. The event saved their life. And for them to just be that open and that vulnerable and share something like that simply because of, what we're doing is priceless. It's absolutely like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember, at the event, you had your motorhome there last year and you were right in front of it. And I was walking by you. Weird, right? We were hanging out together. Weird. But I was walking by and I was like, dude, do you think this event, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like, dude, do you think this event is like save somebody, And you went, no, it's saving 2. Like I know 2 right now that it's saved.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the perfect testament to how amazing these events are. And one of the things I need to that Critter hasn't said is he's taken a place with it's off the grid, right? You don't have cell service. There's no electricity. It's just, you're out there in the moment. And that's something that I think we've all kind of forgotten in our lives. We're so connected on the phones and the social medias and texting and whatever. But you get out there and, okay, we don't have any of that. So one way because in these events, when you go to a motorcycle rally or campouts or whatever, you get clicks. Well, I know you 5 people and they know those 10 people and these 12 people are over here, and everybody's just kind of in their own cliques. Well, we had propane fire pits and Critter took them all and put them in one area and put all the chairs around right there. So we were together as one. And I was getting to know people I probably wouldn't have talked to just because I wouldn't have had the opportunity, right? Because you're in your cliques or whatever. But you're sitting around, you're talking to people, there's stories going on, and then there's like a common eating place. And it was just like, you're interacting with literally everybody and you're learning about everybody's story. And that is so profound that people get in that environment and they're just like, okay, I'm struggling. This happened. Or, hey, this is my story. And people are just able to say that. And there was a lot of people that would just kind of like, and they weren't ready to talk. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's also great that they're seeing that kind of an environment too. And that's because of that guy was thinking.
Is there have you noticed any patterns in terms of what am I trying to say? Does age play a factor in men's willingness to engage in these kind of things? Do you find it younger guys warm up to this quicker than old guys? Do you see any of that yet?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think it's pretty much the same for everyone across the board. I can think of, a couple of the younger fellas that I know that aren't willing to share right now. So you would think, the younger people of this generation would be more open, but no, they are still, for whatever reason. I mean, there's this real thing where just men don't talk, men don't share. Yeah. And even with everything we're doing now, it's having a hard time getting through. It's not sinking in. And age really doesn't play, unless you get, someone super old and long in the tooth, like me, and I sit around like grandpa and tell my story, but no, I kid. But right. But no, I wouldn't say that age is discriminatory against that.
Okay.
No.
What would your advice be to men that are listening to what we're talking about and that feel the desire to connect on a deeper level, but don't share the motorcycle piece of that? I mean, my gut tells me this. Well, I know this. It's transferable what you guys are talking about. But what would you say to men who have that same thing that drew you guys together, and what's your advice to them?
Well, I did a video about finding your people, and in a nutshell, that's basically what it is. I had gone my entire life, basically from the age of 6 alone, not having people, and to find your people is huge. It doesn't have to be a motorcycle community. It can be, you could be part of a chess club, and the chess club could be your people. You just have to find your people. And then once you find your people, your chosen family, you'll find that it's actually a lot easier to open up with these folks. And please do open up. That's where the process begins, is by opening that door, and even just, you know, like some of the commercials say, it's okay to say you're not okay. Yeah. And when you find your people, if you go to, you know, Frank, who's a member of your chess club, but there's a bond, and you just go to him and say, I'm not doing well today, man. You know, your people, they're going to look at you and go, okay, well, do you want to talk about it, or thanks? You know, just, they'll know, but you'll see when they say that thanks, there's the understanding, the compassion, and the caring. They've got your back. Yeah. They know you're there, right? And willing to help.
Yeah. You're seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too that you need to do is, I think sometimes men are worried about being vulnerable and opening up to somebody else. But the thing is, that other person is probably feeling the same thing. Like they might be going through something too and wanting somebody to talk to. But if both of you are sitting in the same room, I'm just like, dude, I'm fine, man. Yeah, dude, let's go have some beers or something, bro. Yeah. Get rid of that junk and just start talking. Like the most scary thing is to be vulnerable. And if you're able to start a conversation like, Chris, I need you, man. I'm going through some shit and I need you right now. Can I talk to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Best thing you can say is, yes, I'm here for you. What can I do?
Let's talk. You know, I read a study someplace, and all it takes is 8 minutes. 8 minutes. That's all it takes. And you can save someone's life. Wow. So if a friend comes up and says, I'm having a hard time. Yeah. Sit down. All it takes is 8 minutes. 8 minutes is nothing.
Sometimes you need to ask them too. Like, what do you need from me? Do you want my advice, or do you just want me to listen to you?
That's great.
Right. So that's something that I've recently learned. Like, if somebody's coming in, it's okay, I am here for you 1,000,000,000%. I have some thoughts on some advice. Do you want to hear them, or do you just want me to sit back and just take it in and just let you go and just let me listen to you and just absorb everything that you're saying? You know, and then we can have a conversation. So it's okay to ask those questions too.
Yeah. That's such solid advice. You talk about that study about the 8 minute thing. What comes to mind when I think about that I heard about it secondhand. I wasn't with our volunteers, but we have been training and supporting teams of volunteer guys across the country for over a decade now, where they literally intercept active online sex buyers, because that's the source of sex trafficking. And anyway, so we've had tens of thousands of conversations, but there was one that I'm aware of. I think there are actually more, where a guy's plan for that night, I don't know, it was a Thursday night or something. He was going to hook up with some girl that he saw on a website and then kill himself.
Oh, wow.
And he got a hold of, instead, he responded to one of the ads one of our teams put up. And so he got a hold of some guys who's, you know, it's all virtual, right? But they saw him, they heard him, and just that experience. And it, you know, I don't know the length of time they engaged with him directly. I mean, it could have been 8 minutes, but it was enough to turn the corner for him. And he actually called them back, or I think maybe one of our guys called his number back a day later. And he said, hey, I just want you guys to know I'm okay. I took your advice. They sent him some resources, and I just want you guys to know I'm all right. So even in that moment where a guy is, you know, about to do something that could, you know, it's going to affect him. It could affect family. It certainly affects the woman who's being exploited. But even then, it's the power of being seen and being heard. Is you can't put a price on that. Any other like advice that you would give to men who are hearing what we're talking about and want to experience that more, but they don't ride motorcycles? Is there any other advice you'd give to them?
Just because you don't ride motorcycles doesn't mean you can't reach out to Critter or myself. It doesn't mean you can't come into our little world on the Instagram and YouTubes or whatever. We're not inclusive. We're not those guys who are like, you don't ride. You know, it's That's not like that at all. But I think Critter pretty much hit it. And like, find your people. We all have people, we all have our hobbies, we all have things that we love to do. And there's other people that share your passion. I mean, it could be hiking, it could be swimming, it could be chess, it could be gardening. There's so many things and so many clubs and so many things out there. Just don't be a recluse about it. Don't be me and push it down for your whole life until it explodes, and strength is therapy sometimes, right? So if you need to go out and learn, one of the things that I ended up learning in therapy was like file drawers. You open up a drawer and all your junk are different files all the way around, right? And sometimes those drawers open up and they spill on the floor and we have a hard time, but you got to figure out how to clean it up and file them away and shut that drawer again, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things. Don't have that file cabinet just tip over and have everything come out, because then it is overwhelming. Try to do what's best for you, and be, like Critter was saying, be authentic, and one of the things for me, I've been called a cancer before. And so if you're in my inner circle, like, I don't really believe in all that cancer-y stuff, but anyways, if you're in my inner circle, it's like you've made it into my heart, and if you were here, like, I remember the first time, like, I'm talking to Kurt, I told him, like, hey man, I love you. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later or whatever. It takes them by surprise. And men aren't supposed to say, I love you to one another. And I was in my 40s before I said that to my dad. And I was like, I have a 25 and a 27-year-old son. I have told them I love you every time they get out of the car, every time we get off the phone, random, just like call, hey man, love you. Just want to say that I'm proud of you. Okay, bye. And so why are we not doing that with our friends too? So for me, it's important. Like Critter knows, I say all the time, dude, I love you, and he's finally like, hey, I love you too. Just shut up. No, but it's funny that as men, we're not supposed to say that. And then you say it to people and they're like, wait, what? Okay. So
and
that's another thing that's amusing.
I can attest to the fact that as men, we want to hear that from other men. It's still meaningful. My dad didn't become comfortable with that until I was probably in my 40s. I always knew that he loved me. He would tell my mom that he loved me, but he passed away at 94. And by the time he passed away, the last words he said to me were, I love you, son. And what's always struck me about those words, it wasn't that he finally said something that I'd waited my whole life for him to say. What struck me is that I had been hearing that for 25, 30 years by that time. And so it's like, it's never too late to start that, and so, this feels like, and maybe it should, this feels like this conversation should go longer. I wanna, it's our custom to give you guys the last word, but I'm going to amend that a little bit and just say, I want to give you the last word for now. And I would love to have you guys come back and talk a little bit more, but what's your last word for now for men that are listening to this?
Last word for now. Well,
best word. Let's go. What's your best word?
I can't sum it up in just one word, but we need to talk. We need to talk.
That's so good.
I'm going to echo that 100%.
Yeah.
Just don't be afraid to reach out and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Pure and simple,
That is so good.
Be kind to people that are reaching out to you.
Yeah.
I think if somebody is reaching out to you unexpectedly, it can really, I don't know, we have to be prepared for somebody to come to us and be like, hey, I need help. And be like, okay, I got to shift gears and be there for that person.
Yeah. You guys, I have a ton of respect for your wisdom, hard-earned wisdom. I have just great affection for your hearts, and I just really admire the depth of the friendship that you guys have built and the way you're calling that out of other men. So I'll say for now, love you guys. Thank you for the work that you do, and we'll talk more soon.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Masculine Wilderness Podcast with your host, Tom Perez. This podcast is a production of Epik Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to disrupting the demand for commercial sexual exploitation and dismantling the forces that perpetuate it. I'm your producer, Lauren Trantham. Special shout out to our favorite logo designer, Michelle Boucher, as well as Wes Finley, who crafted and donated our amazing theme song. Interested in sponsoring an episode? Send us an email at podcast@epikproject.org. That's podcast@epikproject.org. As a nonprofit organization, your donations allow us not only to produce this podcast and change the conversation around sexual exploitation, but also to manage our many programs, such as buyer intervention, teen prevention, and community education. Your support also allows us to support survivors of exploitation and more. To learn more about our work and to donate, visit www.epikproject.org. Once again, that is www.epikproject.org. Most importantly, this podcast would be nothing without you, the listener. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and sharing this episode with your friends and loved ones. Thank you for your commitment to learning more about the issues that affect our most vulnerable populations. Thank you for navigating this masculine wilderness with us. See you next episode.